Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our online learning sneak peek. I think that we're still waiting for some others to join, but we'll go ahead and get started and be mindful of your time. Again, thanks for joining us. I am really excited to go over kind of what online learning looks like in the Kelley Direct program. That's one of the #1 questions that we get in the admissions office. So my name is Sarah Wanger. I am the Director of Admission for Kelley Direct Online MBA and MS programs. Today, we're going to be primarily focusing on content within the online MBA, although a lot of the same similar themes around our MBA courses happen in our MS courses as well. So no matter if you're looking at an MBA or an MS degree, we'll be able to answer some of your questions. Later today, I'll be joined by two of my colleagues, Will Geoghegan, who is the interim faculty chair for Kelley Direct Online Programs, as well as Megan Reese, our Associate Director of Interactive Recruiting, who will be facilitating our Q&A. As you have questions throughout the webinar today, do feel free to use the Q&A function in your Zoom screen. So if you have particular questions that you'd like to ask Will about the online learning experience later in our webinar, please at any point during the webinar, use that Q&A function and send in your questions. Megan will be monitoring the Q&A, and so we'll either answer your questions virtually, she'll chat back with you, or we'll answer them live later on in our session. So first, I'd like to go over the Kelley Direct program really briefly and make sure that you have kind of that overall context for our program. So we are a 54-credit online MBA program and it's comprised of the 4 buckets that you see on the screen. So one of the key hallmarks of our program is that we provide a ton of learning experiences that are actually really face-to-face in nature. So whether or not that's connecting with your colleagues online, connecting with your faculty in our live virtual class sessions, or coming to campus for our Kelley on Campus experiences. And then also, as soon as COVID is wrapped up, we'll be able to get back into our immersions, global and domestic immersion experiences. So you see that our curriculum is kind of within these 4 buckets that you see on your screen. Half the program is core coursework that you need to take in the program, and half the program is electives. So the 2-year plan for the program is kind of outlined as how you see it on your screen, year 1 and year 2. The core courses, you take 6 credit chunks during those core courses, and those are the 3 red areas. And then the gray areas are actually where you fit in your electives and fundamentals courses, and you can take as many credits as you want during those times. So we offer a really nice mix of kind of core coursework as well as flexibility with those elective courses. And then when we're looking at a little bit more deeply at what those core courses look like, as opposed to the elective courses. So you have 3 quarters. We are based on the quarter system, 3 quarters of core. During that quarter, you definitely will take 6 credits during that time. So this is the one time in the program that you can't go faster or slower. We make sure that during those 3 quarters that you're in core, you're taking 6 credits. And usually that equates to 2 virtual live classes per week. And those live classes will start either at 6, 7:30, or 9 p.m. Eastern time. That's opposed to our electives that function a little bit differently. So you'll have anywhere between 6 and 12 quarters of electives, depending on how quickly or slowly you want to go through the program. And again, this is your opportunity to kind of take our curriculum and make it a little more flexible for your own personal time frame. During those quarters of electives, you can take anywhere between 3 and 9 credits per quarter. And it's normally 1 weekly live class session per course. And what you're going to be learning about today is digging a little bit more deeply into kind of those weekly live class sessions. What does that look like, as well as other aspects of online learning? And then the start times for those electives vary. Hey, so now that we've covered the program overview, now we want to hear a little bit about you. So we have quite a few people who are joining us for the webinar today, and we would love to get some more information about who's in the room today. So first, I'm going to have you use your chat, actually. So if there's still questions for us, use the Q&A function, but now let's use the chat. And if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, And we're looking for maybe your first name, where you're at, anywhere in the globe. We typically have students in Kelley Direct from across the nation, the US, as well as around the world. So do tell us kind of where you're from and your profession or your industry. We'd love to hear a little bit more about you. So go ahead and use the chat area to tell us a little bit about yourself. And after you've had the opportunity to do that, then we'll have a second question for you that's around what do you think about online learning? So what are those kind of preconceived notions that you might have about what the online learning experience looks like? So go ahead and use your chat box. Let us know a little bit about yourself and what do you think about online learning? So if you want to use the chat there, and then again, if you have questions about online learning that you want to make sure that we answer today, then go ahead and use the Q&A function and we'll get to those questions live or later on in the session. So I know that we have a lot of participants in the room today, so go ahead and use that chat function to tell us a little bit about yourselves. Wonderful. Hello, Sumana from India, welcome. It's great to have you. Tell us a little bit about your industry if you'd like. Hi, Laura from Philadelphia, welcome. We'll give you some time to use the chat function to type in your answers today. So we'll give a little bit of time for this. But again, if you would like to tell us a little bit about what you think about online learning, we'd really like to get a feel as to kind of what the perceptions are out there about online learning and those preconceived notions that you might have. Probably did not expect that we were going to push you to engage today, huh? That might be new. And you'll actually notice that in our classes, we do a lot of this. You will be pushed to engage throughout all of our Kelley Direct courses. This is not kind of a sit and get type of program. You're going to be engaged throughout all of our virtual live class sessions. Welcome, Lydia. Hello, Carly. Fantastic. It's great to hear from you. And let's see, and we still haven't heard any of those preconceived notions about online learning. So go ahead and use the chat to tell us about your preconceived notions around online learning. That would be great to hear. So while we're waiting for others to chat in, feel free to continue to do that. Just to be mindful of time, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Will Geoghegan, who's going to kind of take the next portion of this webinar and tell us a little bit about the online learning experience. Do feel free to keep chatting in about yourselves and what you think about the online learning experience, because I know that Will is ready to kind of challenge some assumptions today. So welcome, Will.
Thanks, Sarah. I appreciate the opportunity to give a brief introduction. So I started to think about what would be effective for a 20-minute recording to really show you guys some of the nature of how you will learn in Kelley Direct and some of the things that we do to engage you in class. I'm going to play a video in a second. It's approximately 20 minutes and there's 6 main postures. So the first posture is basically explaining some of the differences between synchronous and asynchronous learning. We use both in Kelley Direct and we try and take advantage of both mechanisms and both styles for effective learning. The second major posture then is some of our expectations in Kelley Direct. And so maybe slightly different to some of the other programs that you may be thinking about. The last 4 postures out of the 6 are specifically aligned to different technologies. And what I've done is I've chosen 2 technologies for synchronous learning and then 2 technologies for asynchronous learning. So approximately 20 minutes, hopefully it will give you guys a little bit of an overview into what a Kelley Direct class is and some of the learning mechanisms that we use in Kelley Direct. The most important question that we want to answer in this webinar is, what does it really feel like to be a Kelley Direct student? And some of you guys may be afraid that online programs mean sitting in front of a laptop watching pre-recorded boring videos of some stuffy professor with no technological acumen writing indiscernibly on a far distant blackboard. So the purpose of this webinar is to try to allay some of your concerns and show and tell some of the virtual technologies that we're using to try and enhance an educational experience in ways that might even outperform an in-person context. Let's kick off with a discussion on what is the difference between asynchronous and synchronous learning. So firstly, asynchronous. Well, this means that it doesn't happen at the same time. With asynchronous learning, the participants can learn at their own pace. And asynchronous learning allows a student to view instructional materials each week at any time that you choose. It's not a live video lecture. So you can see in the video example of my strategy class that's playing here, students are asked to watch this video in preparation of coming to the live class. And this is one of about 15 bite-sized videos on average each week that are approximately 5 minutes in duration that I will ask you to watch in advance of coming to my synchronous strategy class. Sometimes we use roundtable discussions to mix things up based on the topic. So here you can see a quick example of Veronica, Tracy and I discussing a macro environmental analysis of Netflix.
Industry. So we're looking at the business-government relationship here. Did you guys find any trends that are influencing this industry within a political legal context?
So I think the biggest one that stood out to me, which even applies to the music industry, is when you look at like royalties and then copyright infringement. I think.
Now let's look at what synchronous learning means. And synchronous means happening at the same time. So in essence, students are required to log in and participate at a specific time each week. And we drive attendance by having our live sessions to be as engaging and as dynamic as possible. And it's something that you need to get live, as opposed to watching later. Now I have one rule of thumb when I develop any of my classes, and that is what you can consume asynchronously should be consumed asynchronously. So that allows you to make the most of your time if you are watching videos in an asynchronous context. You can watch them at 1.5x speed or 2x speed. You can watch them while you're minding your children. You can watch them while you're on your Peloton or on your treadmill. You can watch them while you're on the subway to work. So synchronous needs to leverage that you are all in class together. And we have some superstar students in our program. And when I have a synchronous class, I try and leverage the skills, capabilities, and experiences of our stellar Kelley Direct students. I think of myself more of as an instructor for the asynchronous component, whereas I think of myself as a facilitator for the synchronous component. And you can see a video recording of one of my live classes here where we have about 30 people per class. And we try and use technology as much as possible to drive engagement and dynamism. So using as much as breakout rooms as possible, polls, whiteboarding, classroom response systems, all allow for different pedagogical approaches depending on the topic to drive engagement and participation in a synchronous setting. Let's talk about some expectations now. Expectations that we have of you and expectations that you can have of us. In most cases, we do not require you to come to the live or synchronous classes. But unlike other programs, we have only full-time Kelley faculty teach these classes. So if you are paying for a Kelley Direct MBA, then you get the same faculty as our full-time MBA program. We try to be flexible to your needs. So if you can't make a live class, in most cases you can complete a task in lieu of attendance. But it's far more fun to come to class and to get to know your professor and your classmates. Remember that one of the reasons you will do an MBA is for networking opportunities. Secondly, most classes have a cameras on policy. And remember how much communication is non-verbal. In some situations and circumstances, it's okay for you to have your camera off. But like all work meetings, it's far more effective if you have your camera on and are actively engaged. You'll get the most out of the class by doing so. As I alluded to earlier, you get the same degree as the full-time MBA program, that same piece of paper. So it's the same level of rigor. Typically, class times are a minimum of 27.5 hours per semester for a 3-credit course. So that equates to about 2.5 hours of contact time each week. Usually or typically about an hour and 15 minutes of that is asynchronous video, and typically about an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and 30 is synchronous video. Depending on the course though, each professor can alter this mix. but there needs to be a minimum of 50% synchronous class time so that you're getting the most out of interacting with your classmates and your professor. Let's jump into one of our first tech solutions or facilitators for effective online learning. And this is Canvas. This is our learning management system. Other schools have different learning management systems like Moodle or Blackboard. So specifically, Canvas allows us to simplify teaching and learning activities and organize coursework. And it's best potentially to show you a Canvas site to give you an overview as to what each class that you're enrolled in will typically have. So here we are in Canvas, and I have Student View turned on. I'm going to give you a quick tour of one course. So this is a course in Core 3. It is the Integrated Capstone course. And I'm going to be teaching that in a couple of months' time. So let's click on the course. You're getting the student view here. I have a welcome announcement. So you'll see my welcome announcement here. It gives a couple of bullet points as what the students need to do in advance. There's a video embedded here in this announcement where I talk through some of these components. If we jump now to the home, to where we just were, you see I have a number of folders. And we can go to any one of these folders. Let's go to Class 5, Integration, Validation, and Storyboarding. And you'll see I have 3 subfolders here. So what students are expected to do before class. So if I click on this here, it'll open a portal. There's a number of different assignments. So individual assignments, students in this class are asked to watch 6 of 8 summary videos. So these are videos that I've recorded with other faculty that have taught previous classes in the core. So you'll see that the core objective of this assignment is to watch and respond to these videos. The goal of this exercise is to refresh many of the core classes that you've taken. And I've asked students to complete 6 of the 8 videos. And you can see all 8 of the videos are starting to populate right now. And if I click on the first one, I can watch an interview with 3 of the business law and ethics professors. So Professor Sellers, Eskew, and Perry. These are also linked to assignments. So again, if I go back, I can see all of my modules, all in different folders. There was the folder I was just in, the before class folder. You can see the tabs across the left-hand side here. We use Microsoft Teams as a discussion board and sharing platform, and there's a hyperlink to Teams, the hyperlink to my Zoom room for synchronous classes, the hyperlink to the syllabus, where each of the learning outcomes, the core goals and assessments and grades, the schedule is all listed. We have the assignments that students are expected to prepare and complete. So you see the dates here, the completion dates for students to respond to these. The grades associated with the scores that students will get in these assignments. The students in the class that are populating. I've obviously obfuscated some of their names and photographs for FERPA issues. And then we have a hyperlink to the library that allows people to see exactly library resources and databases. So that's a quick overview into the learning management system that we use. Each class has a slightly different configuration for their Canvas site based on the topic. Now let's look at some integration of our asynchronous video and the way in which we create engagement and interaction in some of our videos. Me personally, I'm going to discuss a tool that I use called Play Pause It. And that allows us to try and engage you while you're watching an asynchronous video. And I've used this for various different applications. First of all, I've used it for my own recorded asynchronous videos in my class. I've used it as a check for comprehension. I've used it as a mechanism to capture discussion board thoughts and perspectives. I've used it for case studies, and I've used it for entrepreneurial pitches to get feedback. And right now I'm going to show you a use case. So this is a video that I'm using on the ski resort industry. And it's an amalgamation of several videos that I found online that really give a great overview to the industry that is the ski resort context. So you're seeing here, it's embedded in a Canvas site. So you navigate through Canvas to the page that it's held. You see some instructions for how to watch the video, illustrating that there's going to be interactions that are going to count as part of the student's participation grade. So you press play and you start watching the video.
There are few sports as expensive as skiing. A daily lift ticket alone typically costs more than $100, with top resorts, such as Vail, charging up to $209 for a day's skiing. It'd be easy to call this a ripoff. After all those $209 are getting you is access, along with thousands of other people, to one of 32 lifts between the hours of 8:30 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. Does it really cost that much for a resort to run a few lifts? Well, the short answer is sort of. Ski lifts are a simple enough concept. With the most common design, chairs, each with a capacity between 1 and 8, are connected to a continuously rotating cable pulled by motors at the top or bottom of the lift. Between all the redundancies and safety systems, though, they end up being fairly complex machines, and complex means expensive. While it varies widely depending on length, capacity, specifications, and location, costs for the construction of a new lift alone regularly reach $10 million, and most large ski resorts have dozens of lifts.
You see that after about a minute, an interaction appears. And the question is all about ski manufacturers and what they are to the ski resort industry. And it gives a number of different options. So are they rivals? Are they buyers? Are they suppliers? And you can see that I've agonized over this answer and I eventually got it correct, that they are in essence suppliers. Having answered that question, then I press play again and I continue to watch the video. So the goal of these interactions in my strategy class are, first of all, to force the student to pay attention to the video so that they're not watching it passively. Secondly, it allows me to insert different theoretical applications that refresh students and position it specifically in the theory that I'm trying to allow the students to learn. So here in this context, it's to understand the different forces in an industry. Each of my case study videos have about 10 interactions. And they vary from things like multiple choice questions, like you just saw, to, for example, discussion board, to short answer essay style questions that allow for you to contribute during the video watching. Using this type of technology gives us as instructors a lot of opportunities. It allows us to create more engagement in our videos by asking real-time questions and interactions. And we have a variety of different options. We have options such as multiple choice questions, free responses, polls, check boxes, fill in the blanks, discussion boards. And we can set a number of different playback options as well. So we can allow you to rewind after an interaction. We can allow you to skip interactions. We can allow you to fast forward. We can allow you to retake this video. We can allow you to see a printable report of all the questions, and we can allow you to increase the playback speed. One of my favorite tools is the discussion board tool in these videos. And it allows us to hear and see our classmates' thoughts and perspectives at a point of time in the video. So here I have a screen capture of a discussion board question in a Ryanair video that I have. And specifically it asks how they are responding to the global COVID-19 pandemic and whether low-cost carriers or legacy airlines are best positioned. The answer to these discussion board type contributions I can then leverage in the live class and draw out more insights and ask more people to contribute and explain some of their thoughts and ideas. The class obviously can see the rest of the class's thoughts and opinions as well at that point of time in the video. The first two tools that I've just discussed are used predominantly in an asynchronous context, so the pre-recorded videos. Now let's look at some tools that we use in the synchronous context, or the live classes, where you show up at 7:30 p.m. on a Thursday night and you work with your classmates in a live class context. So the first one of these tools you've heard of for sure, you're on it right now, it is Zoom. And I'm not going to spend much time on this, but I want to talk about a couple of different things that we try and do. And the first is that a lot of us in the Kelley Direct program, we use breakout rooms. Again, going back to my golden rule of what can be consumed asynchronously should be consumed asynchronously. So if I want to discuss a theoretical philosophy or a model without engagement and participation, then I can record a 15 or 20-minute summary of that. If I want to leverage the skills, experiences, and abilities of the class in general, which have amazing acumen, then it is best facilitated in a synchronous context and using breakout rooms where I can put 3 or 4 people in a room to discuss a problem and then report back to the rest of the class. We also use a lot of classroom response systems, so things like quizzes using tools like Top Hat or Kahoot. We use videos, we use polls, and we use presentations. We also like to use a lot of software such as Google Docs or Microsoft 365. And here you'll see an example of a breakout room with 3 students working in their own tab in a Google Sheet. You can see that the students are working through connecting different arrows to different cells within that Google Sheet. You can see the tab along the bottom that corresponds to their specific breakout room. So I will share one Google Sheet that has potentially 10 different tabs. Each of those tabs corresponds to a discrete breakout room where they will work on a template that I have pre-populated there. Another example is a colleague of mine who loves to use the stylus on his iPad to summarize student contributions. And here we see a summary of some of the student contributions in a Disney Pixar case study that he's using. I'm going to finish with one of my favorite tools for synchronous engagement, and it's a whiteboarding tool called Mural. Some of you guys may have used it, or may have used other whiteboarding tools such as Miro or Klaxoon or Google's Jamboard. Some contexts that it's most useful for is company analyses projects or design sprint weekends. It's really helpful as a visual workspace where end products can become a really neat reality. I like to use Mural by sharing a template in advance. So students have a template and each of those components in my template are a unique posture where I will ask students to work on that posture in their own breakout rooms. After they've worked on that in groups of 3 or 4, they can come back and report their findings and we can learn from a number of different people or groups in the class. And I can give my perspectives. It's really helpful for engagement. Everyone can contribute at once and there's also accountability so that people have discrete contributions within the Mural workspace. There are timers that we can use here so we can keep a track of time so it doesn't get away from us. And it allows us to bring what we do in a real class to the virtual context. One of the other great things about Mural is that it's not a typical whiteboard or not a physical whiteboard, where I always seem to run out of space on a physical whiteboard. So you have infinite space in a Mural whiteboarding template. Let's look at a couple of use cases for Mural. So the first use case is when I've used it for a case analysis on Trader Joe's. So first of all, I've asked students in advance of the synchronous or live class to listen to a Freakonomic podcast on Trader Joe's and to answer some of those questions in advance. Then they arrive in our Zoom room and I share a hyperlink to the Mural that we'll be using. And to kick off the session, I ask every student who has been to Trader Joe's to share a photograph of their favorite Trader Joe's product. And you can see here they're all grabbing photographs and they're starting to populate those photographs into the Mural. And what we get is a whole mosaic of different photographs of students' favorite products in Trader Joe's. Then you'll see on the right-hand column, I then asked them to describe a typical Trader Joe's experience. So in the space of about 2 minutes, I have this super neat mural or mosaic where most people in the class have contributed. You see here that I have a screen capture of what the finished mural looked like after 2 or 3 minutes. And I could then draw from this throughout the rest of the class, positioning specific examples of different people's favorite product items within the main case takeaways. So the example that you've just seen is the whole class, all 30 people working on the same mural. For most of my classes, I then have a mural that is discrete for each group to work on in their own breakout rooms. And you can see the example of a template for Trader Joe's below. So as I said, the first 5 minutes, everyone's working from this class mural. And then as we start to go into more ingrained or niche topics, I'll ask 4 or 5 people to get into a breakout room and then to work through these discrete pastures. So this is a template that is empty, that is awaiting student contribution that I have here on this screen. Now you're going to see a video that I captured of a group of 4 people working on a value chain analysis, which is the bottom left quadrant of this mural. Each of these quadrants are 4 major pastures that I want students to explore in cohorts of 3 to 4 to 5 people. And in the video, you'll see that they've inserted these yellow and purple sticky notes, and they're now trying to connect what are the reinforcing activities.
It's like a secret society.
Yeah, and that's what drives their excitement and so many fans that they just don't know what they're going to get when they go in there, and they don't know too much about it.
I mean, that was interesting in the podcast where like there was not pictures of the owners on the internet. It's not a business thing. That's how these guys run their lives. They don't want people knowing anything about them.
Yeah, what about the guy that he went to go work for them, wrote a book about them, expecting for them to say something, and they heard nothing back?
When I heard that, I thought he would say he expected them to sue him.
Right, but they didn't say anything. They just didn't respond whatsoever. That was interesting.
That would put them in the news, the lawsuit.
Exactly.
The Aldi CEO is a Kelley graduate, Kelley MBA.
Really?
The current Aldi
Hope
CEO?
for us all, yeah.
Hopefully that helped to give you a sense of what it's like to be a Kelley Direct student. And you can see some of the technology that we use in an effort to make this as good, if not better, than the in-person learning experience. All of the technologies we use are there to enhance that educational experience in Kelley Direct. And each professor has different preferences and pedagogies based on the topic that they're teaching and their own personal needs.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Will, for that amazing presentation. And so I'm going to have you come back out from behind the curtain. Also bring up Megan Reese. So Megan's going to facilitate our Q&A.
Hi, yes, my name is Megan Reese. I am the Associate Director of Interactive Recruiting. I have been answering your questions, and we've had quite a few great questions come in. And so, Will, I am interested to hear some of your answers to these, if you don't mind sharing. Can you explain what are some of the differences between Kelley Direct and our top competitors?
Cool. So there's a couple of things, and maybe some of our top competitors are on the webinar with us. But the first thing that we would like to say is that you only get full-time Kelley faculty teaching classes. So the people who grade your assignments, the people who are responding to your emails, the people who are leading that synchronous class once a week or twice a week are people who are actually teaching in the full-time program. So not necessarily the case in a lot of our competitors. And it's something that obviously has a huge impact on cost, but we believe that it drives a lot of the value for us as a program. So that to me is the first thing that differentiates us, not against all programs, but against at least 2 or 3 of our top competitors, let's say. And I don't want to say anything bad about our top competitors. The second thing that I think differentiates us is our integrated core experience. So the curriculum is really important. Spending those 18 credits out of 54 credits is foundational. And that is like the threshold of getting your competency in your MBA. But what is the most interesting and the most unique, I guess, about our program is then we open up 24 credits for any classes. So you get to major in any class or any topic across 7 different major topics. So we're giving you the breadth that an MBA comes with, but we're also giving you that depth that you have a major, whether it's in analytics, whether it's leadership and strategy, whether it's marketing, whether it's finance. So we've spent a lot of time trying to redesign this curriculum, and the curriculum went live about a year and a half ago, and it's something that any of us who were involved in are pretty proud of, that we've managed within a strategy context. I'm a strategy guy. We've managed to reconcile both of those different paradoxes of breadth and depth, I believe. One of the other things that I think is quite different about us is our flexibility. So I talked a lot about synchronous classes, and I love our synchronous classes. I think that they are spectacular. But if you can't make a synchronous class, then you will not be detrimentally affected. You may have to do a makeup task in lieu of that 75 minutes or that 90 minutes that you missed in order for the class to have equal equity. But we equally appeal to someone who's going on deployment in Afghanistan that may not have internet connectivity over the course of a number of weeks. So that flexibility is a major differentiator for us as well. Some of the other things that I think are important are the number of our immersions and our Kelley on campus experiences. So I know a lot of our competitors do something similar. And again, I don't want to disparage any of our competitors. It blew me away. I've been in Kelley for 3.5 years. And when I got to Kelley, initially about these Kelley on campus experiences, I thought that everyone here needed their head examined, like a different live client for each Kelley on campus experience. We pay for your hotels. We make sure that it's this amazing interactive networking experience. And I sat as a participant just to see what was happening during the first week, and it blew me away. So that's something else. Our immersions go to countries like Vietnam, like South Africa, like China, like Brazil, like Ireland. These unique small sample or small student set immersions are something that's really, really unique as well. And I don't want to mention this, but I think we're far cheaper than our competitors. So we don't pay 50% to an online program manager. So to a publicly traded company that goes out and recruits our students. So we reinvest all of that into a cheaper price point for you and into some of the faculty resources that I think are most important. So that's 4 or 5 things that I think we do a little differently, but I would encourage everyone on the call to actually go out and explore this themselves. Dig deeply into this decision because it is a very financially important decision, but also the time and effort over the next 2.5 years. So please make that decision with a full awareness of knowledge, if at all possible. Did I miss anything there, Sarah? I know you have some thoughts as well.
I think that you covered it. Although I know that we've had some questions come in around the networking, and oftentimes I think there are certainly networking opportunities that our competitor schools have. But I'm really, really pleased with the networking opportunities that we provide in Kelley Direct. I actually think that that's a major differentiator for us. So when you're coming to the Kelley Direct program, you're going to be able to network not only in these live class sessions, because you saw how interactive our live class sessions are. Students are fully engaged, and you're essentially networking in every team activity you're doing, in every one of those Google Docs where you're working with your classmates on filling those out. So you're really networking throughout all of those live classes. Those live classes happen with our faculty, and our faculty have amazing networks, so you're able to get in touch with them. But then there's all of the outside of the kind of curriculum networking opportunities as well. So I think I'll take the opportunity now, if that's okay, Megan, to kind of dive right into what some of those networking opportunities are. You may not know that the Kelley School of Business has the largest business school alumni network in the world. So oftentimes you'll hear some of our competitor schools talk about their amazing alumni network, but really poke them on, is that your business school alumni network? Because actually Kelley has the largest at 120,000 living business school alumni. So you have an amazing opportunity to network with Kelley School alums. We have an alumni ambassador program. So if you're looking at various different options and you want to talk with one of our alums during the application process, you can do that already during the application process. We'll pair you with an alum who is in perhaps the industry that you're in or that you'd like to be in, so that you can get a feel for what Kelley Direct is all about from the perspective of someone who's been through it. And then during the program, you're going to be able to network it with our Global Connect Nights, which is through our SLA. So we have kind of 2 pieces here. Our SLA is our Student Leadership Association. You have an opportunity to be a board member and actually make some kind of decisions around what type of networking opportunities and what type of professional development opportunities are available for students. Or you can be part of a sub-association. So we have sub-associations such as Women in Business, Finance, Business Analytics. We have a Military and Vets Association. So you have opportunities to get involved and network with our Student Leadership Association. And they hold Global Connect Nights, typically in around 40 different locations, not during COVID. We actually go into those locations and into a bar or a restaurant in, say, Boston. And all of the Kelley current students and alums from the Kelley Direct program all get together and really network in person. So even though you're in an online program, again, we are offering a lot of opportunities for you to figure out how to get in touch in a face-to-face way. And of course, not to mention Kelley on campus experiences, you'll get lots of networking opportunities throughout all of those. We kind of make that entire experience one big networking session. And then of course, our live classes and our immersions that Will already mentioned. So you have lots of ways to connect in the program in person, in addition to, of course, the online experiences.
And Sarah, if you don't mind elaborating a little bit on the Kelley on campus experiences, both the in-person and we also have virtual versions. We do have some students who are enjoying working from home and don't really want to leave. And they're wondering, what does that look like?
Yeah, actually, Kelley on campus is something that we get the most positive feedback around our Kelley on campus experiences because they are so incredibly powerful. So I know Will was mentioning sitting in that, he was a little skeptical at first, and then he got there. And it's kind of mind-blowing, the connections that students make and the connections that you make with your faculty when you're on campus and doing something together. And so our Kelley on campus experiences are extremely valuable. We have moved Kelley on campus virtual during COVID, and we are exploring options to continue to offer some virtual options, but there's really nothing that can truly take the place of that in-person experience. Whether or not that's in Bloomington or other locations around the world, we will provide you with a really strong opportunity to network together in person and get that kind of Kelley feel wherever you are around the globe, and can make connections together. So Will, is there anything you want to add to that around kind of Kelley on campus and that component or that experience?
No, you summarized it perfectly, Sarah. I think it's one of those that you have to really, really engage with. You have to do it before you understand what I'm talking about right now. That my skepticism as to how Kelley could pull this off 3 times a year just blew my mind. And some of the ways in which that Kelley operationalizes that is ingrained in our culture, I think. So, yeah.
And that's the feedback that we get from students too, is at first they're like, oh, I guess I'll come to campus. I know you have a residential component. And then they are, after the first Kelley on campus, they're like, okay, when can I come back? When I'm ready for my next Kelley on campus. So good, you have 2 of them, and that you'll have a couple different opportunities to get together with your colleagues. But then again, you have those other opportunities to get together, like our Student Leadership Association hosting our Global Connect Night. So it's certainly not going to be the only time. And we have students doing meetups and lunches and going to coffee all the time, just because organically you're going to build connections in your virtual live classes that you're just going to start building a network. It just happens really organically. And actually, in one of the other webinars that we did that is posted on our website, it was a student panel. And a couple of the students remarked that they built stronger connections in the Kelley Direct program than they feel like they got in their undergrad traditional kind of on-campus experience, 4-year experience, that they built tighter connections in the online MBA. So take a look at that webinar. You can hear it right from the horse's mouth from the student panelists. But really, that was powerful when I heard that. It was really a reminder that we are doing something really right here.
Awesome. Thank you both for answering that question. We are coming up on the 45-minute mark, so I want to be careful with our time. Robert is wondering, are course videos available for online or offline viewing? I believe the answer to that is yes, that those are going to be recorded, but Will, if you want to
it depends on the professor. So most of our professors, and not all of them, have made it available for offline viewing. So most, again, once you have any type of internet connectivity, and most professors will work with you, but I do not want to promise that across the slate. One of our professors, for example, last semester had it posted online, and then someone was going on deployment, so she made sure that that person could download the videos. So yeah, it's still a professor by professor decision, and it's not been a programmatic decision for the professors to potentially retain that IP, that it's not shared across thousands of other people, and that it's only available to Kelley Direct students.
Yeah. And we've got a few concerns about work-life balance, and a few who are wondering, how do I complete all of my coursework while working full-time? What is the time commitment for this program, and is it feasible to do this while working full-time?
Cool. I'll take that. I guess the typical time allocation, Megan, as the video talked about, is 2.5 hours of a mixture of synchronous and asynchronous. That 2.5 hours is sort of the maximum. I know some people watch my video by 2x speed. Megan, I think you were planning to increase the speed playback of my video there to try and get my 20 minutes down to 15 minutes. So that is the maximum, 2.5 hours. As I said, an hour and 15 minutes asynchronous, and then an hour and 15 minutes synchronous. There's a lot of caveats here to some of the extra work that you have to do outside of that 2.5 hours. So for example, potentially some teamwork on projects. And it depends on two main factors, I think. The first factor is what grade do you want in a class? If you want to score a high A, then the time allocation is going to be greater, obviously. If you're okay with coasting and getting a grade that's a little lower than an A, then it's going to take less time. Ironically, from what I found of working with Kelley Direct students, most Kelley Direct students are pretty type A, largely made up of. So that's the first thing, the nature of the grade that you're looking for. And secondly, I think it's the acumen that you have in different subjects. So if you are working in finance, then the finance class should be relatively straightforward for you. If you're working in strategy, the strategy class should be relatively straightforward. I know people push me on the time allocation, and if I was to give you my strategy class, the 2.5 hours in video, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous, and then approximately 2 extra hours if you are looking to get a B+ grade. If you're looking to get an A grade, then probably an extra 4 hours. And what we try and really emphasize in all of our classes is that there's no busy work. So for example, in my strategy class, those 2 hours, what you're working on in my strategy class is you are applying strategy frameworks to the organization that you work for, or to an aspirational organization. So you're learning more about your company and the context in which your company competes. And the ultimate goal of my strategy class is to present out a strategic recommendation. So again, the busy work, you're not necessarily working on some aloof product or aloof business that you'll never have interaction with. In subjects like business law, they're asking you about regulatory context and legal context for you and your organization. In the organizational behavior class, they're asking about the culture and the leadership of your organization. So that 2 hours as a minimum, for example, in my class is not busy work. It is directed towards having an instantaneous impact on what you're doing. And that's why any of us faculty who teach in Kelley Direct, we love it because we get positive reinforcement on that. I will get students immediately say, wow, I presented out your strategy canvas to my senior manager, and now we have a completely new product direction that we want to go in. So really tough to give you a rule of thumb on time, but I would say allocate at least 5 hours of your time for each class, and that could be up to 10 or 15 hours if you are struggling on quant or on finance or something like that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I know that we're at time, so we could probably go on. We definitely are getting questions in. We could go on for a long time, but we are going to wrap things up just given that we're getting close to time here. I want to say a huge thank you to Will for creating such a stellar presentation about the online learning experience. It really encapsulates exactly what this experience would be for you if Kelley Direct turns out to be the right fit for you. So if you have more questions, we would love to talk to you in our admissions office. Feel free to get in touch with us. You can get in touch with us. All the contact information is on our website, but kdirect@iu.edu is the email address. We'll put that in the chat, kdirect@iu.edu. Feel free to email us any other questions. We will be sending out the recording of this webinar today, so you'll get that in your inbox in the next week or so. So that you'll be able to go back over this content, because I know we gave a lot of information to you today. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you again to Will and to Megan for joining me today. Thanks to all of you, and we'll hopefully talk with you soon.